Hey, what's up to everybody out there? Welcome to another edition of the Roundtable Talk. I am your host, C Money. And in today's episode, I want to talk about a topic. I was thinking and I was looking at some videos off of YouTube and I was thinking, hey, whatever happened to modern day TV, like kids today, like kid TV, kid shows today versus kid shows from the 80s and 90s, and it was like, oh wow, like, and I there is no comparison because if you was to say, would you watch kid TV shows today, or would you watch the kid TV shows of the 80s and 90s? I would prefer the shows of the 80s and 90s because, oh my god. And one of those contributing factors was the greatest network for kids ever, Nickelodeon. Now, of course, you had Disney and the Disney Channel, of course, but Disney didn't just have their own channel. They had, different platforms. Remember Disney Afternoon, and Disney used to, they had cartoons that came on different networks. You had cartoons that came on different channels. They just didn't come on the Disney network. The Disney network, or the Disney Channel, I should say, didn't come popular until probably like the 2000s. Even though the Disney Channel was out there for since the 80s and 90s, but back in the 90s, we had Disney Afternoon. There that was on another network where you came home from school, you get to saw DuckTales, Chippendales, Tailspin, Darkwing Duck. You get to saw all of these things. But back then, Nickelodeon was the hottest spot to be. You had some of the greatest shows ever. You had Doug. You had a lot of other shows out there, and even the competition shows. But let me tell you this: when Nickelodeon, as you know, Nickelodeon started out in Universal Studios, Orlando, Florida. When Nickelodeon Studios was housed at Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida, that's when you got the best shows ever. You got Clarissa Explains It All. You got All That. You got Keenan and Kel, the Amanda Show, which is with Amanda Bynes. You got Double Dare. What's the other shows? Wild and Crazy Kids. Legends of the Hidden Tomb. You got phenomenal shows. You know, and things like that. And you got shows that meant something. And it was phenomenal. You was ready to watch it. Now, if you was lucky to have cable back then, because Nickelodeon was on cable, you was considered a gold mine. Because like myself, I didn't have cable growing up. So me catching all of these great shows on cable, I had to either go to a friend's house, or I had to be somewhere where cable was at, like whether you was in a hospital or whether you was somewhere that cable was on, and you just so happened you could turn the TV and be like, hey, like you're in a hotel room or something like that. Because back then, cable was a luxury. Cable is now not considered a luxury, even though it is a luxury. Because now everybody gets cable. Because now you have social media apps, and you have Hulu, Netflix, Tubi. You have all of these streaming apps. So for me, cable is not really a luxury, but it's really considered still a luxury, because now there's so many on the air channels, because since now you have to use, HDTV or one of those little converter boxes to watch TV. You have so many channels. Like here in South Florida, we got over 30, 40 plus channels just alone without cable, And so you able to watch a lot of stuff, whether it's cartoons, whether it's retro old school television, whether it's reality TV, whatever. Yeah, but back then it was something for the kids. Like now these days, kids, yes, you have Cartoon Network, you have the Disney Channel, you still have Nickelodeon, and you have all of these, other channels. But nothing is gonna beat back in the day when you Double Dare and they used to slime you with the slime, and Legends of the Hidden Tomb. Even PBS, you had Arthur, Barney, Sesame Street, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, Shining Time Station, Electric Company. Even though Electric Company was back in the 70s, but you had phenomenal cartoons. And a lot of these cartoons, Captain Planet, oh my god, that's one of my favorite. Um, it's one of my favorite superhero cartoons. Even though Captain Planet was in a lot of people's book, it wasn't considered a superhero, but he was a superhero in my book, and I loved watching it. You know, you had cartoons that just made you, oh my god, from the original Pokemon, from the original Power Rangers, from you know, VR Troopers, which was a show similar to Power Rangers. You know, VR. You know, phenomenal. And you can't compare the '90s and the '80s cartoons to today because a lot of the cartoons today, like you have Family Guy, you have American Dad, you have The Simpsons, one of the greatest cartoons out there. You had the Boondocks. You know, you've had a lot of great Ren and well, I can't say Ren and Stimpy. You got oh my God, so many. Even you know, but back then, Teletubbies. Oh my God, I used to like to watch Teletubbies. Tinky Winky, Dipsy, La Pro, Teletubby. Oh my God, and I tell you no lie. Even as an adult, some of these cartoons hit you, you know, as you grew up because I was in the early 2000s. I was a young adult, and a lot of these cartoons still hit differently. And you know, I grew up. Sometimes I used to watch it with my little cousins and my nephews and niece. I used to watch these cartoons with, you know, because I don't have any kids, and you know, I used to be around my other, you know, relative kids, whether it's cousins, nephew, niece, whatever, and stuff like that. And when you be watching these cartoons, you be like, oh my God, this just brings back so much memories, and it brings back, you know, to your childhood. And now these days, I know a lot of these cartoons doesn't exist, and there are some streaming platforms and some networks that do, you know, allow you to watch some, you know, like, you know, some of these old school cartoons. But a lot of these cartoons, you know, it's hard to find. But and you can probably find some episodes on YouTube, but there's nothing like sitting down, and even when you wake up on Saturday, because that was one reason, because you know, as kids, we never like to get up in the mornings. We never like to wake up. You know, when your parents used to wake you up for school, you be fighting to get up. And it's the same way with me. Like when I'm off of work, or if I'm off, or if I have nothing to do, I get up early. But when I have to work, or if I, you know, things, even as a human, you know, you fight getting up in the morning. But on Saturday mornings as a kid, we knew to get up early enough to watch our Saturday morning cartoons. We gonna make us a bowl of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, or Fruit Loops, or Apple Jacks, or whatever we had in there. You know, my grandma, when I was in Georgia, she used to have Honey Smacks. You know, the Diggum Smacks. I used to eat that. You know, when I visit my grandma in Georgia, oh my God, when I tell you, you get up early enough to watch those early morning, Saturday morning cartoons, it hits differently. And you didn't care. You was up. Like, you was like, I didn't care if it was 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm up for the cartoons because back then we had cartoons that made us want to get up. And if we missed an episode, we'd be like, oh my God. You know, it's like missing one of your favorite reality shows or TV shows when you miss an episode. Because back then, when you missed an episode, you was, oh my God, you was devastated, and you had to wait till the season was over with to actually get to see the reruns, because you know, back then when a TV show came on, you had to wait till the end of the season to watch the reruns, because they'll show the reruns throughout. Now these days, you missed an episode of a show, you can log on to one of the apps. You know, you missed a show on CBS, or missed a show on Nickelodeon, or missed a show on one of these things, you know, one of my favorite, you know, shows. You know, you miss a show, you can go right along, you know, and you could just, you know, watch an episode. Oh, and I did this as an adult. There's one of my favorite networks that comes on regular TV, and they used to have TV shows that I love. And when I used to have to work and I missed the episode, I used to always go online the next day to the app, and I have the app on my computer. And I'll watch the episode. You know, I pay a small little subscription fee, you know, but that's the only one I'll pay because the subscription is cheap, and it hasn't risen. But a lot of these streaming apps, you paying low subscription, then throughout the years you're paying them $30 for a subscription to Netflix and Hulu and all this. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good. But yeah, back then you was devastated when you missed an episode, especially with cartoons, because you was like, oh, when is this guy episode gonna come on again? And you don't know. And cartoons, they didn't really have like promos to say, oh, next up on Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers, Chip and Dale do this and this and this. Oh, next up on DuckTales, this is what's going. They never had promos, so if you missed an episode, you rushed home from school. And we used to do this. We used to rush home from school to watch Pokemon, to watch Power Rangers. We was rushing home to see the Disney afternoon, Tailspin, Darkwing Duck. We rushed home to see our afternoon cartoons. Because if you missed an episode, who's to say you was ever going to see that episode again? And you might can see it now on certain platforms, or you can, see certain episodes on YouTube, but it's nothing like sitting home as a kid, eating some chips and the juice, watching Chip and Dale and watching DuckTales, Scrooge McDuck. It's nothing like that. Now these days, kids don't even go home to watch cartoons. As soon as they get in the house, they turn on the video game and they playing Call of Duty, or they shooting other kids from other ways. They talking to kids through that's way across town. My nephew does the same thing. Be talking to people and they in different states and be shooting them online, and I'll be like, where is the nostalgia in this? Where is all of the, what is going on with the generation today? Back then, we was privileged to watch our cartoons. Now these days, they got cartoons that don't even make sense. Teen Titans, what else? They got all of these other cartoons. When they started being, Boondocks is a good cartoon, and I've seen Boondocks. But, my thing is, there's a lot of stuff, cartoons ain't what it used to be. Cartoons was back then, we had a block. Remember on Friday nights was TGIF? And you didn't go nowhere on Fridays till you got through watching TGIF. Family Matters, Step by Step, Perfect Strangers. You had a lot of these, shows that came on TGIF. And from 8 to 10, you was glued to TGIF. You didn't go to hang out with your friends. You didn't go nowhere, And even if you could go somewhere, you was like, nah, TGIF phone. Steve Roker finna come on. Nah, I ain't finna miss Did I Do That. And it's like everything hit differently. Now these days, because remember, every night of the week, there was something to watch. You was glued to the TV for something. You had something on Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. You had something. Friday nights was TGI Fridays, Saturday morning cartoons. You had things to look at. Now you scrambling through the TV trying to figure out what should I watch. There's probably right now only like 2 or 3 days of shows that I can watch, or 2 or 3 nights that I can watch of TV shows. Now, you're sitting home on a Saturday night. Remember Saturday night, Snick. On Nickelodeon was the teen block where they had like Kenan and Kel. They had all that. They had a lot of these teenage shows, and kids used to be glued to the TV. You'd be like, oh yeah, let me watch this. Let me watch Clarissa Explains It All. Let me watch all that. Let me watch Kenan and Kel. Let me watch all of these shows. And then in the mid-90s, you ended up getting the WB and UPN. Oh my God, Moesha. Steve Harvey Show, the Parkers. You end up getting a lot of these good shows, the Wayans Brothers, you Sister, Smart Guy, and you was glued, and every night of the week there was something to watch. Now, it's like, what is there to watch? And then it's not even no more TV watching. Why you think a lot of these shows are getting canceled? The Sherry Shepherd show. Why you think a lot of these shows, a lot of these shows are getting canceled? Because there is no Sherry Shepherd is just one of the ones, because I did a recent episode about it. Why you think a lot of these shows are getting canceled? Even Arsenio Hall tried to make a comeback with the Arsenio Hall show, because he got canceled because he had Louis Farrakhan on his original show, and it sparked a lot of controversy, and then his show ended up getting canceled. He even tried to come back to Late Night. He only lasted for a season, and then what happened? Late Night is not the same anymore. A lot of these shows, they're not the same anymore. A lot of these people are not, sitting down watching TV. You got TiVo and YouTube and Tubi and Hulu, and you can pause a show, go take a leak in the bathroom, go grab a bite to eat, come back, do show. Back in the day when you was watching the show and you missed a clip of the show, Even when the show was beginning, shows back then, oh, in the heat of the night, oh my God, one of my favorite all-time cop shows ever. When that theme song came on, in the heat of the night, you sat there and you sung and you listened and you was, theme songs, the all that theme song. Oh, this is all that, and you sat there. TLC, oh my God, back then theme songs to the shows. Golden Girls, thank you for being a friend. I seen a post recently that somebody posts about, you know, Golden Girls. They have to skip the intro on, I believe it's Netflix or Hulu or something like that. You don't skip the intro, girlfriends. Every time girlfriends, not girlfriends, the Golden Girls. Every time, even girlfriends, Angie Stone, rest in peace. But when girlfriends came on, you sat there and sung that theme song, even the short version, because they had a short version of the song. But when you sung the long version, and if you threw a party and invited it, oh my God, you sat there. Those songs, you sat there. Now, a lot of these shows now, they just put the title of the show and then just start rolling the people's names. The Family Matters. It's a rare condition this day and age. You sat there and you sat through that whole song and you sat there and sung that song step by step. And that's when artists were singing songs. Now you just got a little bit of music, and then all you see is while the show going on, you see the people's names going through the credits. No, give us back the original theme songs to these shows. Whether it's somebody singing it or it was music that was just going, because the music back then was banging. That's why I say a lot of the stuff, Chippendales. There's no case to be, no case to solve. When you need help, just call Chippendales. Life is like a hurricane here in the blur. Oh my God, it was tailspin. Give us our childhood back. Now you get these TV shows today, The Blood of Blood, and then while somebody in there doing something, starring this person. Just like Blackish, one of my favorite shows. I love Anthony Anderson, I love Jennifer Lewis and Tracy Ellis Ross, and a whole list of cast. They didn't even have a theme song. All they had was, you saw the thing Blackish, and then it went ding, and then they just started showing the names of the stars of the show while the show was going on. And I'm like, where is the theme songs to these shows? Coolio, all Keenan and Kel. Oh yeah, the nick. You got back then we had a childhood and early adulthood that gave us memories to last. Now you look at these shows and you wondering, that ain't no theme song. That ain't nothing. That's just a little music to the intro, And I'm like, where is the feeling in this? Where is the love in this? Now these days, kids, they not watching what we used to watch. Barney, Sesame Street with Elmo, the original cast. Arthur. I didn't even know until recently that Arthur was sung by one of Bob Marley's kids. Every now and then you're walking down the street, everybody that you meet, there's an original point. Because back then, celebrity musicians was the ones that actually did the songs for the shows. Moesha was sung by Brandy. Parker's was sung by Kim Parker. Countess Vaughn, which was her, her name, Kim Parker, was her stage name. You had A Different World. The first few seasons was sung by Aretha Franklin. Then it sung, the last season or two was sung by Boyz II Men. You had Johnny Mathis and Denise Williams sung the theme song for Family Ties. Jeanette Du Bois, which was Along the Woods on Good Times, she sung the theme song for, the Jeffersons. You had people that sung these songs, for these things. Now these days, well, the neighborhood, you have, I believe it's Omarion. They don't tell you this, but if you look at the neighborhood, Omarion is the one you could tell his voice. But they don't even have an actual theme song. It just says "Welcome to the block," "Welcome to the neighborhood," "Welcome to the hood," and that's it. And then when the show comes on, it just shows everybody's name while the show is going on. But give us back our childhood. Bring back the music in these theme songs and these shows opening credits. Give us back our childhood. Give us cartoons that exist. Don't recreate these cartoons and they're garbage. I seen the recreation of She-Ra and it is garbage. Like the recreation of He-Man, the recreation. A lot of you recreating these shows and they are garbage. There's talked about recreating a different world, and I was like, if you recreate, they recreated one of my favorite school shows, Head of the Class, and it only lasted a season. And you didn't create it. I didn't, I never got to see none of the episodes. Even with Saved by the Bell was another one of my favorite school shows. A lot of these shows that got created didn't last because you're recreating shows, but you're not giving it what we want. When you recreate these shows, you're supposed to say, okay, what happened after the kids graduated? What is it? You're supposed to be like some of the kids' parents are the original kids from like Head of the Class. When they recreated the show, Robin Gibbons, who was one of the original cast members of Head of the Class in the 80s, she came back because her son was one of the class members in the school. But we wanted to see more of what happened with the other parents' kids, and stuff like that. We want to know, it's supposed to be recreation of the parents are growing up, now their kids going to the school and stuff like that. We want something similar to that. The same thing with a lot of these other shows. Y'all want to do reboots of these shows, but y'all got to recreate it to where it coexists with the original. You see, when they did Saved by the Bell, a lot of the original cast members came back to the show, but they came back because they was either part of the school or stuff like that. And you got to remember, we want to see a recreation. Just like I did an episode a while back of the shows that we never got explanation to. We was left on a cliffhanger. Remember, Moesha Miles got kidnapped and somebody was pregnant, and that was the end of the show. We never got a cliffhanger. Remember Girlfriends, when Tony Childs was set to marry her husband, and he got drafted. He had to go and fight in the war, and they never really got that off, and there was a lot of explanations that went down, and a lot of things that we didn't get explained. And I was like, when Judy went up the stairs in Family Matters and never came back down, and the cast members are talking about it, but we never really got an explanation. And a lot of these things that we see today is like garbage, and kids think that it is great. And even with music, a lot of kids think that Lil Wayne is old school music. Lil Wayne is not old school music. If you want old school hip hop, you talking about Run DMC, you talking about the Sugar Hill Gang, you talking about the 80s of LL Cool J, Salt and Pepper. Lil Wayne ain't old school. If you talking about old school music, you're not talking about old school Keisha Cole. You're talking about the Stylistics, the Drifters, Patti LaBelle, Teddy Pendergrass, Luther Vandross. Y'all thinking old school music is Monica music from 2002, or you thinking Chris Brown when he first came out is old school. That's not old school. Old school, you talking about Brandy from 1995 when she first came out, where I Want to Be Down, or you talking about Luther Vandross Here and Now, or Patti LaBelle when she said, I got a new attitude. You talking about Teddy Pendergrass when he said turn off the lights. You talking about Al Green when he said love and happiness. You talking about, Temptations when they said Papa was a Rolling Stone. Now these kids today thinking, oh, Trick Daddy when he first came out, that's old school. Trick Daddy is not old school. He's just an legend, a Miami legend, but he's not old school. Old school. If you want to talk about old school hip hop, you talking about the Sugar Hill Gang. You talking about LL Cool J. You talking about Kool Moe Dee, Big Daddy Kane. Queen Latifah, Moni Love, MC Light. You talk about things like that. And now these days, kids, they got the Baby, Lil Baby, Big Baby, 6ix9ine. What's the other one that just passed away? XXX Tentacon or whatever you call his name. You know, you got all these little rappers that's coming out. It's rappers I see. I go to parties and I be hearing these songs and I be like, what is this song? And I look at them, I'm like, who is this artist? And you be like, you don't be knowing none of this. Back then, artists was out there. Now you got underground artists that you don't even know about, and they come out with music, and you be like, "Who is this?" Just like, you know, recently, you know, they a lot of these rappers, you know, and I'm like, "Who is these people?" You know, and it done got to the point where you're sitting up here like, "Where is this? What is the music about now?" You're not you know when Tupac was alive, Tupac was talking about Brenda had a baby, you know, or my mom at 17 and my mama had me at 17 years old kicked out on the street. Lady, dear mama, you know, Biggie Smalls, it was all a dream. I used to read What Up magazine, Salt and Pepper, Heavy D up in the limousine. People had feeling back then. You talked about the struggle you had as a person. Even love, you know, back then you had Joe, you had, you know, Michael Jackson, you know, you had all of this stuff. Now, you know, like I said, TV shows is not what they used to be, and the music that these TV shows give is nothing. Now half of the now TV shows, all they do is just use, you know, back then, you know, artists used to sing the theme songs. Like one of the greatest shows out there, I'm not going to say it's a great show, Moonlighting starring Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis. The theme song was sung by one of the great jazz legends, blues legends ever, Al Jarreau. He even made a video to the song and made a whole song, song from it. He just didn't sing the theme song, the Moonlight. He created a whole song for it. Because, you know, most of these theme songs, they so good, people be like, why don't they have an actual song? Al Jarreau actually did a video, made a video and created a whole song for the theme song Moonlighting. So it was like, wow. Now you get people that just, you know, get theme songs, you know, they just pick up a song, modern day song, they use it as a theme song and that's it. You know, they do some little booty shaking music or they do some song that from somebody's album and they use it as a no. Create music and create shows that gave us the feeling. Create shows that will make us want to sit down and watch it. Because now everybody, oh, I'll just watch it later. Or I don't want to watch it right now. Or I don't want to see this episode. Or I can watch it. You know, back then, you had to sit there and watch the show. It wasn't no pause, wait till I go to the bathroom. You had to watch it. So, I want to know what y'all think about this. Do y'all think that this was that modern day TV is better today or was better back then? Because believe me, it was better back then. Back then it was way much better. Back then we didn't have to, you know, we sat down and watched TV. It wasn't like now. You get your smartphone and download Hulu. You miss an episode, you can catch your favorite show on Hulu. Back then, you're like, oh no, it's coming on tonight, but I'm gonna hang out with my friends. I can watch it tomorrow, you know, and stuff like that, you know. Or no, you sat down because there's nothing like going to see the actual episode when it aired. Because you used to talk about it the next day. When, you know, you used to go home and watch the Power Rangers. And then the next day, did you see that episode of the Power Rangers when they almost did with Ball and Skull and all of that? Oh my God, I was about to go crazy. You went home, you saw your favorite cartoon, and then the next day you went to school and you talked about it in school. You talked about it with your classmates, and y'all sat up there at lunch and talked about cartoons. There's never going to be an era like that ever again. Now these days, you know, people go to the movies, they be spoiler alert and they be spoiling it, and then they go to the movies and people like, wait, don't tell me yet, I haven't seen the movie. You know, back then when movie premieres came out, everybody went to the movies when opening night. Now people, oh, I'm going to wait, it's too crowded, so I'm going to go like next week or so like that. So let me know how y'all, let me know how y'all feel about this. Do y'all think that it is better now with the TV shows and music and everything, or it was better back then? Because back then it was a lot much better. You had an adrenaline rush to go home, like the adrenaline you had to when you get on those amusement rides. You had that same adrenaline when you was ready to rush home to go see your favorite cartoons. You didn't even do your homework yet. You grabbed you a bag of chips and a juice, and you was glued to the TV when them cartoons came on. You was glued. So let me know how y'all feel about that. Do you think that TV is better today or it was better back then? comment at the bottom of this page. You can also email me at roundtable00@yahoo.com. I really want to know what y'all think about this. And if you was born in the 80s and 90s, I want you to weigh in on this. But if you was born in the 2000s, you can comment as well too, because I want to know what is your intake on this. Because I want my generation from the 80s and 90s, and I also want the modern day generation to comment on this, because I want to know what do y'all feel about this. Because technically, I think that TV and music from back in the day was a lot better than it is now, because a lot of this stuff is garbage. So I want to know how y'all feel about that. Thank y'all for watching. Comment at the bottom of this page. Email me roundtable305@yahoo.com. And as always, stay safe, stay blessed, stay hydrated, and of course I will see you in the next episode. Take care.